Hello, everyone, and welcome to week 5. This week, we are learning a bit more about descriptive strategies that you can put into your personal narrative paper. You might have seen this narrative arc map before, probably in a more simplified version, but when we take a look at the basic plot or the narrative arc, how a story ebbs and flows, there are some similar characteristics along the way. And every story has the setup, conflict, resolution. As we take a look here, it's totally up to the author how they choose to start a story. This could be introducing a character right away, starting with some vivid sensory details, talking about the setting so we have a sense of what's going on in time and space. Or there could be a call to an inciting incident where the author starts right in the middle of action to hook the reader. Throughout the course of the story, there's struggles along the way. And this can be an internal or an external conflict with somebody else. At the crisis point, that point of the most significant conflict, the story is considered at its peak there. From then on, whatever that conflict or crisis is, there is some kind of resolution. Sometimes that resolution is uh, a happy ending. Other times it's, hey, this is, life hands you bad cards at some point. And ultimately, there should be a reflective component or something that speaks to resolution of how the finishing or how the main threads are spliced together. But we've probably seen something like this before. This is that narrative arc with the setup, conflict, resolution, and how everything coalesces together. Something in creative writing that we talk about quite a bit is this concept of showing instead of telling. And we can show readers in their mind's eye what's going on by leaning into animated language that is visceral and specific. And if we just take a look at these two sentences right here, we have very different images in our mind's eye. The market is busy, there's a lot of different produce. Okay, not horrible, but we can see in our head the stalls of bright green bok choy, the gnarled carrots, fiery Thai peppers that are mentioned in the second example. We can tell that it is busy because stopping only to inspect the occasional citrus. Everyone is busy, focused, and industrious. We get a sense of the chaos that is going on based on the language that's used. I'll post this video as well. I think informal words can be helpful as well in creative writing. And there is a very mundane situation that we probably find ourselves in every single week of ordering a coffee, and there's some miscommunication along the way. And even in this mundane story, there's elements of specificity that make it memorable for readers. And I'll share that stand-up comedy bit. There are some characteristics of good introductions and introductions that probably aren't capturing as much attention as we would like. And if we are taking a look right at the beginning of the story, how are you introducing either character, setting, or the inciting incident? Good intros typically will catch the reader's attention. The narrator's voice, tone, mood, perspective, point of view is established pretty quickly. We can tell, okay, is this somebody who is sarcastic, kind, if they are maybe despondent or bitter about the state of the world. We can tell that through an introduction. It gives us that window into that narrator. There's some interest. Intros are relatively short, just to provide very bare bones of what's going on. There's a little bit of an allusion to the conflict, but nothing is given away at that stage. Ways that we can improve introductions: don't give away the ending of the story too soon. We want that suspense to build. The attention getting first statement of today I'm going to write about, today I'll talk about, we can always do better than that. And by starting with some sensory detail instead of this is what you're going to get out of this by the time this is over, we can build up that world a bit more. Avoiding slang in the very first section might be helpful just to not alienate readers or to lead to miscommunication. Using a quote or a definition is fine for an informative paper, but we want more humanity in the personal narrative genre. We also should avoid starting with a question unless it's maybe a speech where we are asking to get a response. That always puzzles me in writing because a question is being asked, but since it's a text, nobody's able to respond to it in that moment. A couple things that you can do to start the paper. Couple items here. Specifically, that vivid imagery and description really can capture people right away. And of course, if you want to use humor, if your piece is more on the comedic side, that can also hook people right away as well. But those are just a couple ideas. These are 10 opening lines from admission essays that were submitted to Stanford University. I won't go through all of them, but I think without having to go through line by line, we can see there's a variety of strategy here that's all effective. The fourth one here, I have old hands. Very short sentence. It gives us a bit of mystery of, okay, well, what qualifies as an old hand? What does that mean? If we're looking at some of the visceral, vivid details of the second to last one, I stand on the riverbank surveying the rippled range like some riparian cowboy. Instead of chaps, I wear vinyl, thigh-high waders, and a lasso of measuring tape and twine slung over my arm. Great specifics in that statement. We want to learn more, but those are just a couple that have stuck out at Stanford University at what makes an attention getting first statement for narratives effective. This is from the text this week. If you've taken a biology or science oriented course in the last several years, you're probably familiar with a chart like this of going from generals down to the specifics. And there isn't a step-by-step guide on this is how to write effective papers and effective descriptions. It's ultimately up for interpretation, but sometimes if we are looking at, okay, I don't know where to get started, we can start with some prompts to help generate some ideas. If you are personally struggling coming up with that first line that really can hook people, this is just some advice. You can take some of these prompts here and fill in the blank based on the content of your story. That might be a good entry point to consider how you can form that opening section. This is also in the text this week. I'll put everything up on the screen here. But when we're looking at 6 elements of telling a memorable story that sticks out to people, the simple, unexpected, concrete, credible, emotional, and story-based elements rise to the top. And there's some more information about each one. I will specifically call attention to emotional, though, because I think there was a very interesting element that rung true for me of when we are looking at individual cases versus maybe issues that are impacting an entire region, we tend to donate more money, time, and attention to individual cases rather than larger organizations. And we might have seen this in our personal lives too. And there's something that kind of can connect back to narrative writing of if there is a single person who's asking for help or a a GoFundMe for somebody, we're more likely on that person to person basis to get invested in that story versus maybe contributing to a large organization where we are not sure where the funding is specifically allocated or how much is going to marketing versus actually helping that person. So there is this humanity that is within all of us that connects us to the personal plights of somebody. But those are just some additional characteristics that we should be considering while crafting this document. I have more information here about that narrative arc specifically. Feel free to take a look here. But if we look at the exposition, the climax or central conflict, and then the resolution, those are the main sections that we should have identified already at this point in the personal narrative. Then filling in that initial incident, the rising action that gets us to that point, and then the falling action that indicates that this conflict is going to be resolved, or even if it's not a happy ending of a result, something that has that reflective component of what somebody has maybe learned or experienced along the way. And last slide, if this is your first class with APA 7 formatting, I just wanted to provide a very brief explanation on what your paper should include. And in APA 7, you have a choice of fonts. I have noticed that the vast majority of students will just stick to the 12-point Times New Roman standard in APA. When submitting your personal narrative paper, this cover page should be at the very beginning. The title of your paper, top, bolded, and then contact information and other content here. You'll see name, the university, the name of the course, the professor's name, and the date in which you're submitting it or the date that it's due. For a lot of students, it tends to be the same date. And the page number will appear in the top right-hand corner. Just make sure to also change that font to match the font you selected in your paper. Double spaced and margins that are set up 1 inch by 1 inch all the way around the document. And double spacing can sometimes throw people for a loop because, especially if you're working in Microsoft Word, double space is not the default. So as you are typing your paragraphs, highlight everything, right click or two finger click, depending on your laptop, and select paragraph. From that, a screen will pop up. Adjust the numbers to 0 and then flip multiple to double. Then when you hit OK, you'll see some slight variation. Your paper will then be double spaced. And there's also in the Cleary University Online Library, there's also an opportunity to just download the template that is there. And I'll put a link on how you can access that information as well. But overall, I'm looking forward to seeing what you come up with for these narrative essays. Please let me know if you have any additional questions. Just make sure 3 full pages double spaced for the minimum page requirement for this one. I am looking very forward to reading them. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. Thank you.